Thank you, viewers, for tuning into yet another informative edition of your program. This is Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030, and my name is Wadzanai Manyore. So today, in this very episode, we have taken the liberty of visiting Gungunyana, where the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development is located. We are going to be talking to the Chief Director, Agricultural and Rural Development Advisory Services, Professor O Jiri. He's going to be enlightening us generally on the steps and the various programs that has been put aside specifically for the Zimbabwean farmer in this 2023-2024 production season. So without further much ado, I'm going to be inviting Professor O Jiri to the platform as we get into the first segment where we are looking at the impact of wildfires in agriculture and how as farmers we can work to curb them. Stay tuned. Professor Jiri, I would like to welcome you to our platform today.
Thank you, Wadzanai.
Yes, as we get into our discussion, Prof. Jiri, we are in a season whereby there are two things happening simultaneously. The wheat is headed towards senescence maturity, and at the same time, we have a looming threat of wildfires. This is a season whereby the grass is dry, and people, if they are reckless, it can result in damage of the wheat. Can you talk to us in terms of maybe the extent or the negative impact of wildfires in the agricultural industry?
Thank you. The agricultural industry is basically a victim of fires. So we are a big victim from the cropping side, the livestock side, and going on to our property. So really we are a victim. We don't ordinarily cause fires, but once the fires start, they damage us in terms of our crops. So we are a big victim, and we would rather have prevention of these fires than controlling them. So we do work with EMA really to ensure that we prevent fires. We can only do so much alone. We have to put publicity and awareness to our farmers and to the general populace so that they prevent fires in the first place, and so that everyone is conscious of the dangers of these fires.
Okay, Prof. Jiri, you would find that in years prior to this one, last year when I was looking at our social media platforms in the agricultural fraternity, we had one farmer from Mashonaland East who actually ended up collapsing after his field was invaded by fire. Talk to that Zimbabwean farmer who might be in Karo in Mashonaland West. His crop looks beautiful. He has done everything properly. How can he work to ensure that he curb those risks as a wheat farmer?
So yes, at the last year we actually lost 200 hectares of wheat to wildfires. So it's the impact is huge. When you talk of 200 hectares times 4.8, which was our average yield last year, times $682 per ton, that's a huge loss. So firstly, farmers must protect their wheat. In terms of insurance, they must do that. And secondly, there are things that farmers can do on farm to ensure that fire doesn't get to their field.
Yes.
So things like the fire guards, which EMA really is an act to ensure that every farmer needs to put a fire guard around the farm. That is by way of an act which actually penalizes those that don't put fire guards around their farms. And then we also need to be proactive, organize village fire committees, farm fire committees, so that when such a fire breaks out, you can easily activate those people and ensure that they control the fire. And lastly, there is also need for firefighting equipment on farm. It can be rudimentary, it can be something that is sophisticated, but the important thing is that those that use those fire equipment must be trained by EMA to make sure that they're able to do what when a fire breaks out. So those are things that the farmers can do to protect their farms from fires.
Okay, Prof. Jiri, you would find that generally our Zimbabwean farmers, when it comes to issues surrounding insurance, they have a tendency of thinking that maybe it's a wastage of money. You would find that in our agricultural fraternity, not every farmer is insured, be it livestock, be it cropping ventures, even their buildings. People still don't understand the importance of insuring their enterprises. Can you talk to us in terms of those Zimbabwean farmers who are into wheat production, what they can take advantage of when it comes to the insurance setup?
So farmers must take protecting their crops seriously. So just like a farmer would prioritize inputs, your fertilizer, seed, chemicals, including ZESA, power and water, those inputs are prioritized because they are direct inputs into production. But there are also inputs like hedging against the risk, which is very important. So farmers must already budget for insurance to ensure that if anything that is unnatural or natural happens, they are hedged against that risk. This is the importance of insurance at the farm level. So there are various ways which farmers can insure: the weather indexed insurance, yield indexed insurance. All those types of insurance available so that farmers can really protect their yield should such a loss occur. They are well protected to avert any losses. So it's very, very important. In fact, as in our general programming for Fumvuza, we've put in a weather indexed insurance to ensure that we even hedge our smallholder farmers against the vagaries of the weather, which is very important. If the smallholder farmers, if we see the importance for the smallholder farmer, what more for a wheat farmer who is commercial? So it's really critical that farmers put in insurance as an input to their production. Just like they prioritize fertilizer, seed, they should prioritize insurance as an input, power as an input, water as an input.
Professor Jiri, still with the wheat farmers, you would find that at times our commercial farmers are racing behind time. After their wheat, they want to come with soybean. Is there another way for that Zimbabwean farmer, instead of kukwenya machis kupisa the wheat straw, achida kumhanyidzana kuti auye nesoybean yake? What would you want to say to that type of a farmer?
So those that burn, they are not good farmers. In fact, that's a very bad farming to burn, because when you burn wheat straw, you are not burning wheat straw. You are destroying an ecohabitat. You are destroying things that live in the soil.
Yes.
You are destroying the useful organisms. In fact, you are burning the soil, which is your very basis of production. So we don't encourage burning at any given moment. So if you are removing wheat and you are going on preparing for the next crop, what you must do is to really go in there, use methods that don't disturb the soil. Minimum soil disturbance and minimum tillage. Go in with your tine reaper and so forth, just to ensure that you have somewhere to plant. That is how you can do it. But burning, no. And when you are harvesting the wheat, if you use a combine, most of your straw is gone anyway.
Yes.
All you need to do is to go in, bale it. So we have this adage that we have, that we say, don't burn it, bale it. That is what you can do. If you don't want that, we say don't burn it, mulch it.
Yes.
So whichever way you do it, either use it as mulch or you bale it for your livestock. So either way, we don't encourage burning at all costs.
On that note, viewers, we're going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in the second segment. Stay tuned. Welcome back, viewers. We are here in the second segment of your program, Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness in Support of Vision 2030, where we are looking at the outlook of the 2023-2024 production season. Now, we have reserved this segment to look at the Fumvuza concept, which speaks to conservation agriculture, where we are looking at farming with future generations in mind. Stay tuned. Welcome back, Prof. Jiri. In this segment, I have reserved it for the Pfumvudza concept. For the sake of our audience there at home who might be watching for the first time, can you maybe give us a brief background synopsis of the Pfumvudza concept? What are the key principles that anchor this concept?
So the Pfumvudza Intwasa concept is basically a climate proofing concept to make sure that whatever rainfall we receive, we're able to conserve and use it judiciously for the crop. So that is basically the concept. It has 3 or 4 principles. The first one is that of minimum soil disturbance. So we just say the farmer should dig a hole where they are planting. So you're just digging a planting station. That's why you dig. So after digging, the next principle is that of mulching, which ensures that we don't have evaporation and evapotranspiration from your soil. Then the third principle is doing everything on time and you do it well. So that's the third principle. But over an extended period, the fourth one is really that of crop rotation. So the farmer should use the same planting holes. So every year you don't open new holes. You just come there and refresh the old ones. So use the same plots, the same planting station. So you just open there the planting hole. That's the only place you disturb. And then you do your mulching from whatever, stover, grass, straw, murakwani, and manure, whatever you can use to mulch. And then you do everything on time. So before the season starts, you must already have done your potholing, your applying of mulch, and also any other things that you may need to apply, lime, manure in the planting hole. You do that well on time. When the rain season starts, you are already well ahead. The only thing you do is to put your seed and cover it and wait for it to germinate. So that's Pfumvudza for you.
Who is the targeted group for this concept? And what are the objectives?
So the issue of conservation agriculture is not a smallholder farmer issue. So Pfumvudza, yes, it looks at very small plots which you can produce more on less, so increasing productivity. But where it was started in Zimbabwe, it was started at a large scale commercial farm in Matepa Tepa there. That's where it started, and the farmer there then was doing conservation agriculture using this concept until they then wanted to also make sure that it's done by the generality of the people. So we understand that our farmers, our smallholder farmers, have small plots. That's why it was also tailor-made for the small producer. But there is no reason why a large-scale farmer cannot do conservation agriculture, Pfumvudza included. The opening of plant holes, yes, may need to be mechanized when you are doing it on a very large scale on a commercial farm. So that is what the farmers' options can be, to mechanize. How do they open plant holes? If they are only 20-hectare plot, 1,000-hectare plot, they can use any method they want. Mechanize. Maybe you use a reaper to just open your planting stations. Do that year after year. Maybe you have labor to do the potholing. So you can do anything. But Pfumvudza is not just for the small farmer.
Yes.
It's for all farmers to climate proof. It's the climate change and the need to climate proof which dictates the need for Pfumvudza in conservation agriculture.
Thank you so much, Prof. Jiri, for that. In looking at the industry, how has Pfumvudza been performing? Would you recommend it continually going forward? Just briefly, rough estimates and approximates of how it is performing within the industry. How has it been like?
So when Pfumvudza was started by the ministry, when the ministry started spearheading it in the 2020-21 season, then the yields for farmers who did Pfumvudza were 5.6 metric tons per hectare, which is very huge. And yet on the conventional, the yields were 1.2, around 1 ton per hectare on average. That was a very good season, by the way. So going forward in the following 2 seasons, we also had a very good performance of the Pfumvudza plots. outperforming continuously the conventional plots. So on the part of yield, Fumvudza is the way to go, because basically you are going back to the natural and not disturbing the soil, and that already gives you a head start in terms of anything. So when you apply the manure, the fertilizer where it's really utilized by the crop, that gives you a head start. So you can't compare yields of Fumvudza with those from conventional. And as you look in Zimbabwe, we started with 2.5 million farmers, and now over the last 2 seasons we are now targeting 3.5 million beneficiaries. And these are beneficiaries that are in our database, whom we know that they use Fumvudza. In fact, we also encourage them to dig the planting stations for at least 3 plots for them to receive the Fumvudza inputs. So definitely we know for sure that the majority of the households and the majority of the beneficiaries under the Fumvudza program are using Fumvudza.
Okay, how is this production season funded? The summer cropping production season, the 2023-2024 production season, how is it funded?
So basically we segregated our production into 4 parts. The first one is definitely the Fumvudza program we are talking about. The second one is the NIAPS, which is the combined agriculture, if you like. And the third one is that for the contractors, so the private contractors in a grouping that we call the Food Crop Contractors Association. And the fourth one are the self-financed farmers. So that is how we have segregated these the programs which fund our agriculture. The Fumvudza program obviously is funded by government. So that's the presidential program which funds the smallholder vulnerable beneficiaries. So that is how it is funded.
Thank you so much for highlighting and showing our Zimbabwean farmers and talking to them in terms of how this season is going to be funded. I can see that there is a range of options whereby if one does not fit in Fumvudza, he can go through the CBZ Agri you just highlighted as the NIAPS or the Command Agriculture. Thank you so much for that. On that note, viewers, we've come to the end of the second segment. We're going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in the third and final segment. Stay tuned. Thank you, viewers, for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030. We are here in the third and final segment, and we have reserved this final segment to look at how, as an industry, we are prepared for the adverse conditions that are coming in with the El Nino threat. We can tell from our meteorological department that we might be experiencing certain conditions this very season, and Prof Jiri here is going to be talking to us in terms of how prepared we are as an industry, as the government of Zimbabwe. Stay tuned for that. Prof Jiri, we are here in the third and final segment. Welcome back.
Thank you, Wadzanai.
Speaking of the preparedness of this season, looking at the looming threat of the El Nino conditions, can you talk to us in terms, as a ministry, how prepared are you to ensure that our Zimbabwean farmers are going to produce and they are going to be viable and sustainable within their enterprises, be it cropping, be it livestock, they are all taken care of?
Thank you. I think in terms of preparedness for the season, we have always planned with a dry season in mind. So that has been our programming. So the Fumvudza program is a climate proofing agenda. So we have always been dealing with that. And also the irrigation thrust that we have. So concentrating our production around the irrigation schemes and around the irrigable areas has always been a thrust that we know that is a climate proofing agenda as well. However, going ahead for this season, when the Meteorological Service Department announced that there is going to be an El Nino or a more drier year, or precisely a normal to below normal rainfall season, we then, on top of our summer preparedness plan, we then went ahead and instituted 17 additional measures to climate proof our agriculture. So these include cropping measures, they include livestock measures, They include insurance measures, seed security measures, irrigation measures, which we are tracking along in the 17 of them to ensure that if it's climate proofing using Pfumvudza in Kwasa, we are going ahead and also adding moisture enhancers in there, concentrating some production around the traditional chiefs. We also have seed security. We know that seed will not be a problem this season, but after a drier year, next season, we start having problems with the seed. So we are ring fencing the seed producers to ensure that we actually have enough seed for next season. The irrigation thrust that I've talked about, we are leaving no stone unturned to ensure that all the irrigable area is put under maize, because the thrust for food security is really maize. So we are making sure that all irrigable areas are put under maize. Irrigation schemes and private irrigable land from farmers, we are conscientizing them to go ahead and plant maize. So 17 additional measures that we've put in the basket to ensure we are ready for the El Nino season.
I want us to look also at generally your expectations this year in terms of hectarage or the land that you expect to be under maize production, under soybean production, the traditional grains, rough estimates of what you are expecting our farmers to be producing or establishing this season.
So for maize, yes, we have targets, which we have national targets, and then we break down these into provincial targets. And then we break them down into district targets. We break them down into ward targets. And then we break them down into extension officer targets. So each of one of our extension officers, they know how much they must be putting under a certain crop in this season. That is the minute detail that we are getting into. And we also segregate those targets into programs for funding. So each and every one of those farmers would know that I'm funded by so and so. That is how we are managing. In terms of the numbers, we have our target for maize is 2 million hectares across the country. 400,000 of those are under Pfumvudza. And these are also broken down into provincial targets, which the provinces have. In terms of traditional grains, we are talking about 700,000 hectares of traditional grains. And quite a sizable number of that is also produced under NIAP's program. So we have broken them down into provincial targets, into area targets, into funding targets, into individual extension officer targets.
Okay, as we close this episode, Prof Jiri, we are headed into the production season. You are our coaches. We would refer to you as our coaches. In terms of hyping us up, Prof Jiri, taakwenda ku season kwa tukunogadzira chikafu. Your parting words with farmers, contractors, financiers, agronomists who are watching, what would you want to say to them as we close?
There is no beauty in hunger. There is only shame. The shame of it is that there is always something we can do about the hunger. So let's do it. And our armor is our armor. Adaptation, mitigation, and action. So let's do it.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof Jiri, for permitting us time to come and visit you and talk to us about pertinent issues in our agricultural fraternity. We looked at the Pfumvudza concept, we looked at the production season, the 2023-2024 production season we are in, and we also looked at the threat that comes with the El Nino drought or even the veld fires that might attack the wheat crop that is in the field as we are headed towards maturity. Some might want to call it senescence. From me, your host was Zanai Manyore. I'm also on Instagram. It's a W Manyore, and the crew behind the scenes. Have yourselves a fabulous evening. Thank you for watching.